Welcome to the Ostrich Running Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Meraz,
King Ostrich,
an amateur ultra runner with a habit of making questionable life choices, like running 100 miles just to see if I can. Now, if you're here, you're either a fellow running addict, a curious onlooker, wondering why on earth people run for fun, or maybe you just like hearing stories about people pushing their limits and occasionally crashing face first into the dirt. Either way, you're in the right place. We talk all things running, brutal races, training mishaps, gear that works, travel bidets, and gear that doesn't. Plus, we do interviews with runners, adventurers, and people who might be a little crazier than I am.
No such thing.
All right. We will keep it fun because running is already hard enough. So lace up, settle in, and let's hit the trail. This is the Ostrich Running Podcast, where we run far, laugh hard, and try not to die on the way.
He almost died the other night.
We'll talk about that later. Welcome. Here we are.
Finally doing this podcast.
Finally doing the podcast. We are here. We thank you for joining us along this journey that is the Ostrich Running Podcast.
The journey's just starting for them.
It is.
You've been doing it for a long time. But
We've been in it. We've been in this journey.
Yeah.
You know, we've had interviews and we really haven't even started to do our first episode. So we're kind of backtracking now. We haven't released any of the other episodes, but this is the first episode. Right here we have our buddy Matthew. Matthew the Ostrich. Call him Matty.
You're King Ostrich. You're the king of this whole movement that we're doing.
Yeah, I guess I should explain what ostrich running is.
What
right?
is ostrich running? Who the heck are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, to understand ostrich running, we have to go back to the past.
How far do you want to go back? Because
I don't want to go back too far because there's too many crazy stories that go back further. So let's just go back.
We'll cover them in future episodes, right?
Yeah, we'll get into it, I'm sure. So, my name is Nick Meraz. As I mentioned in this intro, I am an amateur ultra runner. I started running about 4 years ago, going on 5 years.
Okay.
You know.
And you didn't run it all before that?
I mean, so I played sports growing up, you know, football, baseball, soccer. And then I joined the military at 17, got out at 21. And then the only exercise I got was through my lifestyle.
Yes.
That I was living. But other than that, I guess for the next 15 years, it was a lot of abuse to the body in the ways of self-medicating.
Definitely ran ultramarathons every day, right? Back then. Just in a different type of
yeah,
way.
It was a ultramarathon of lifestyle choices. So I am currently 6 years sober, going on 7 years. You know, we can go into it, I'm sure, in some of these other interviews.
We need one of those clap button things, like those DJs.
We can insert it right now. We actually have it here, but I haven't loaded the sound effects to the board.
All right.
You know, we're going to figure this out as we go through, but it's okay. So, bunch of lifestyle choices, had 2 kids, realized I needed to change, ended up getting sober, and in that first year of sobriety...
We're all proud of you, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You guys were proud of me when I was having a good time. I could still have a good time. I just don't.
We're proud of you for different things back then.
Different things. Yeah, here we are. Still surprising, you know, that I made it this far, that I even made it out. Yeah, so in that first year of sobriety, the body goes through some crazy physical changes. And I started to gain a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was a picture that was snapped of me jumping into a pool And that's the biggest that I was. I'm not going to say my weight because, everybody has a different weight standard that's the biggest for them, right? We all have different body builds, so I don't need to say the number. Let's just...
But you didn't like the way it looked.
Yeah, it was still big.
Right.
Especially for my height and size.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that, I need to do something, right? And at the time, I had decided to go back to school and really focus on myself, focus on my mental state, my mental well-being, ton of therapy, recovery programs. And in that time, I figured I needed a win that would be somewhat attainable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started running, and I couldn't get past about 1.5 miles in that first year. It was a struggle.
In the first year, you kept trying.
I kept trying. So I'd say in a few months, I just mile after mile after mile. This was all new to me. I didn't know marathons. I didn't know ultramarathons. Didn't even really know 5K.
Weren't even thinking about that.
Wasn't thinking about it. I was like, just go and run and work out and get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, within a few months of doing that, the idea of a marathon popped in. And I figured, hey, let me run a marathon. I guess that's what we do as humans, right? We use the marathon as the measurement tool of what am I able to accomplish, right? Because, for majority of people out there, a marathon is unattainable. Yeah. So if you ran a marathon, shout out to you, because that is insane.
It is insane. Especially you just skipped over a 5K.
Yeah,
I just
felt like similar to my lifestyle choices previously, go big or go home.
Yeah.
Let's just go hard. And I figured, okay, let's do this marathon.
Did you know anyone else that had ran a marathon? Or were you training with anybody else?
Nope. I've never met anybody prior to this that had ran a marathon. I never knew a runner. And I would say, like, if they were a runner, I didn't know it.
Right.
But that's a lie, because now that I'm a runner, we like to talk about it a lot, as you know. So I probably, if I would have met a runner, they would have told me, and I would have known they were a runner, because we like to brag about it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with bragging about it, because you should brag about it.
You really should.
But I didn't have anybody but YouTube and Google, and I just figured, let's do this. Let's go out. And I started doing mile after mile. I think my first time running over 10 miles was at the gym treadmill. And that was just to see if I could do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. My feet were destroyed. My ankles hurt. And I also didn't know about rest days or different types of training. But I did it. And, quickly I noticed how injury prone you could be when you just start stacking miles after mile after mile. But again,
how much were you running before this?
Before the 10 mile, I think once I got to 3 mile, then I, went to 6 miles, and then I figured let's just run 10 miles. So you
were making huge jumps.
Yeah, making huge jumps relatively fast. Yeah. So this is probably within 3 months' time, getting up to that point. And then I decided to do a marathon and signed up for the Orange County Marathon. And yeah, I basically just put miles after mile after mile, but it was very troubling, I should say, because there was a point for about 5 months, that I could not even get past mile 18. I mean, there would be points where I had to Uber home.
You're just out there by yourself too.
Yeah. So I was running where we were living at then. I was running Beach Boulevard down to Huntington Beach, I guess. Yeah, Huntington Beach. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this, as I mentioned before, I just had my second child while going back to school. So, everything was, my wife and I, we really had a lot to do, right? We had a young child and a newborn. So I did not want to be an inconvenience to my spouse. Mm-hmm. And I made sure that I did all my training runs while they were all still asleep. So a lot of 4 a.m. wake ups, doing all this
every day,
pretty much. And then weekend long runs, and then I would, I basically did that. And when most people are recovering after like long runs,
right.
10, 20-mile runs, your body just shuts down. But I did not have that opportunity. I was forced to
be a dad.
And yeah.
Plus, Nick never shuts down anyway.
No.
I mean,
as we've seen in the previous life, I go fast, go long, go hard, and it's just in a different thing now. But yeah, so long story short, I ended up, completing that goal. But in that process, I found out about things called ultramarathons. And, I was like, 100 miles.
You guys are going to quickly learn that this guy will never just stop at a certain level. Right? You have to keep finding the next.
Yeah, the next, and that could be another question that we'll get into a little later as to
worried,
why.
Actually.
Well, you might figure some things out. But yeah, so I learned about ultramarathons. I had one friend who I found out was a runner after, some time meeting new people at different schools.
Quick, did you finish the marathon?
I did. I did finish the first one. Yeah, I finished the first marathon.
What was your time?
God, it was ridiculously long. 5.5 hours.
Who cares though?
It was crazy.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. 5.5 hours. Brutal. Legs felt terrible. I was throwing up. I was so dehydrated. The race was so hot. I didn't know about fueling.
Was it hot that day? It was
very, very hot.
Yeah.
And obviously when you're slower like myself, you're running through midday heat most of the time. But yeah, so I did that. I completed the goal. Side note, I didn't want to fail the marathon while telling everybody I was going to run a marathon.
Yeah.
So the week before that, I went and ran my own marathon, just in one of my trail paths.
Which is a horrible idea.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, I don't want to fail publicly. So I went and ran a marathon on my own. No big finish, no medal, nothing like that. Just was like, okay, I can do it. I'll run it next week. And I got in my car and drove home and was dead.
Yeah.
And then I did not realize that your body takes time to recover quite some time.
Especially if this is your first one.
Yeah. So then the next week I ran my actual marathon, which was my, my actual attempt. And so then I started doing ultramarathons. Like I mentioned, the 100-miler distance came up, but I had a very good friend who said, don't go for the 100-mile first.
Do not do this.
Just do 50-mile at least to see if you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Did not finish my first attempt at a 50-mile. Dropped for, I had COVID the week before.
Yeah.
There's no excuse really. Either way, it was still hard.
There's a lot of excuses not to finish a 50-miler.
Yeah, there is. And, but I finally just stuck with it, kept training hard, finished 50-miler. And then finally, after I logged a few 50-mile races, I finally set my sights on 100-mile. And that first attempt was Javelina 100. October 2024.
And we're going to cover all of these races in more detail.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of things in the middle.
Spoiler alert, I did not finish that 100-mile attempt. So at this point in time, I am still void of the 100-mile distance. I only made it to 62 miles in that race. I
really don't believe humans are supposed to run 100 miles.
Yeah.
In a day.
It's wild. So that's a little bit of my background of running. And during that time, I ended up having a lot of problems, right? Issues, things that I needed to face and correct.
Shitty problem.
That's one thing. Well, I knew that I was in it. I'm at this point, I've invested so much time in running that I'm in the community. I'm all for it. I'm all about it. So the idea kind of sparked on with Jarett here. Why don't you start a running brand? if you love it so much.
Right.
And my response was, I hate running. I cannot stand running.
Right.
And I think you were curious as to how do I hate it?
Yeah. How do you do this all the time and you hate it?
So I think the thing for me is, if I can force myself to go do something that I hate every single day, and still do it, it trains your body and your mind to do other things that you don't like to do, because life's going to give you a lot of things that you don't like.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to power through it.
You got to push through that.
Yeah. And in that process of hating it, I must have got what is it? Stockholm syndrome from your captor, when you start falling in love with your captor.
Oh, yeah.
And then I fell in love with running, you know.
Because it's kind of crazy. It's crazy to see when you can't run for a week.
Yeah, my mind goes through some bad places. Yeah, so it's become like a therapy tool. It's become an outlet. Sometimes you just got to shake out, you know, those demons.
Yeah.
Yeah, shake out those demons, and the only way you can do it is by beating your body down. Ain't that right, Matthew?
Can't wait to talk to other people that have something close to the same experience that you went through.
Yeah.
And see what keeps them running, or do they love to run? Yeah.
This is actually one of the great questions that we're going to go through when we go on this journey of this podcast.
Yeah.
But yes, so Ostrich Running was born.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, ostrich.running.
What's your slogan?
It's actually Run Scared. And the reason for Run Scared is a few things, right? You want to, you know, most people, if they're running for the fear of their life, right,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably going to run the fastest they've ever ran, because you need to survive as a human, right?
Right.
You need to survive. You need to be able to come out the other side.
That's why you
alive.
chose an ostrich, because basically in Africa, that's all they do.
Yeah,
is
so
run
an
around.
ostrich only runs because it's scared, right? And, you know, so I felt like you should run fearful at all times to give the best that you can, right? And it's not saying run away from things that scare you. It's just running towards that fear, essentially, or using that fear to fuel you, is just a great way to push yourself.
Maybe the fear of going back to
the
way that you used to live before you started running.
Yeah, and that's what I use as my fear. I use the fear of unknown distances as like motivation.
Get, right?
Yeah, you know, you just don't know, and the unknown is scary.
Mm-hmm.
So I use that, right? The ostrich, specifically, why I chose that as the mascot of
the mascot.
Right, Matt. It's okay. So the reason why I chose that is the ostrich is technically a bird, right? And a bird that cannot fly. At that, so a bird that cannot fly is still a bird, right?
It used to be able to fly. Gotta look that up.
I think we have to look that up. You would think we would know more about ostriches if I had this. I mean, we know quite a bit, but yeah, the things that we're learning now, right?
Right.
But yeah, you wouldn't call that bird broken, right? It's just really adapted, not having flight in order to become better. And now it's probably one of the Earth's best runners, right?
Yeah.
So although we may be broken at some point, you know, we're not obsolete. We're not incapable of doing great things.
Right.
So adapt. So that's where the ostrich comes from. And now we're here just trying to get the message out to the world of what we are, and, you know, educate the community of people who are already involved in the community, who are fans of different ultramarathon runners, runners running, and all things running, right? But then aside from that, you know, we
all
also
the things that go along with running.
Yeah,
right?
But we have people like yourself who are just so intrigued at why.
I don't understand why you guys do this.
Yeah.
I did one half marathon.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
It was the toughest experience of my life.
What's your running experience like? What kind of running?
I mean, I grew up running, so
track.
I've always been an athlete since I was young. Mostly soccer, mostly basketball.
He still plays soccer. And he's quite good, by the way.
I love
he's
to
gonna run
work out.
A soccer brand.
I love to work out. I do love running. I just love chasing something. It's very hard to just run around a track and be in your own thoughts for as long as you guys do it.
Outside of
so
soccer,
I'm very intrigued. That's why I love being on this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I get to dive into your brain on a daily basis.
Yeah, you don't want to be there.
Yeah,
Outside of running, or outside of soccer, what does your running days look like? What do you do
right now?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of soccer, I try and run a mile a day. You've kind of inspired that, like to just try and get out there and just run, basically. So, but that's about it. Like after a mile, I'm like, I think I got what I wanted out of today, and I don't need to go further. Maybe sometimes I'll go for 2 miles, but I love getting outside. I love pushing myself through something, and then after that, I might just walk. After the first mile, I might walk another mile.
Okay.
But
okay, so
yeah, just watching you do it every day, I'm like, God. I mean, you're such an inspiration that I think about what I did in just 1 mile or 2 miles, and to think that you do this for 50 miles is the most, especially where you've come from, is the most inspirational thing I've ever seen. And I knew him before. Yeah, I knew him before he started running. Yeah. Which he was always a go-getter. So it's not too crazy to see him do this compared to some other people, but just to think about you being in your own thoughts for 50 miles, doing it by yourself, and watching your recovery has inspired me to just try and run a little bit.
Nice. So your biggest distance is the half marathon?
Yes. And
how did that go for you? Traumatized.
I'm seriously still traumatized to this day. And by the way, I didn't train at all. I thought I ran soccer. I'm going to be running this with my 60-year-old uncle. I can keep up with him. We're going to stop. We're going to walk. No, he likes to run.
I was going to say, that's the one thing that all these new runners come in. They're like, watch me take down these old guys, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And these guys get murked.
Yeah. Because my thought process is, well, you know what? I'm not used to stopping. In soccer, you're kind of always kind of moving. My body is made for sprinting. So I just like to...
Short bursts,
or once I start running, I don't like to stop because my body, when I stop in soccer, it's kind of like your body knows, let's shut off.
Yeah.
So but he just ran at a slow pace. And then, I constantly had to keep stopping. My body shut down a whole bunch of times. And I collapsed when I finished. And I've never felt pain like this before in my life. Like, I didn't know that your eyelashes could feel pain. Or your like, pinky nail. Like, there's nerves that go to your pinky nail. Like
you were cramping all the way.
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. Like, you feel it throbbing in places you've never felt before. If you think that you could just get out there and run and do this.
Was it humbling?
It is very humbling. I mean, it was one of the most best feelings of my life to finish. I understand what you guys are pushing yourself to do, I think.
And so, you know what? This is what's crazy, that you understand, right? Mm-hmm. And you felt, I think we talked about this, you felt that like, oh, yes, I crossed the finish line. This is the greatest feeling, right? I'm done. I'm finished, right?
I went home and just laid in the grass. And just looked up, and the sun felt different. The trees, it's like
would you say you felt the trees? Runner's high?
Yeah, 100%. Like something even in your more addictive days, I would say.
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
Just feeling the world like that, like where every single little thing matters. And I hope I'm not. My goal is not really to get you guys to inspire. Well, we do want to inspire people to run and to achieve the things that you have.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, it was painful and beautiful.
You have more of a curiosity.
Yeah, I do.
So what I was going to say
and there is something calling me to like try it again in a faster time. Like you want that feeling again, but then the pain I don't want. So
this is
it's like the feeling of scoring a soccer goal, but
yeah.
But for a long period of time after.
So this is what I talked to you about, and I said, like, you know, the finish where people, the way you felt, right? Yeah. Accomplishing, you were in that runner's high, right? I feel like for me at some point, I'm still chasing that. And this could be a result of my past, right? The dopamine hits that I was taking in different aspects, right? I looked at that and I wanted to cross that finish line, and I saw people crying, and I'm not a crier. I'm not an emotional person. I want to be, I try to be, but it just, maybe I haven't fully given myself to that, right? But I think what I was looking for when I ran that marathon was, oh my gosh, I'm done. I did it. I crossed the finish line and I was like, all right, that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody else has that same, or has had that same experience, right? But it's like almost like, okay, what's next, right? I think the training and all that really was more intense and satisfying than that short-lived, okay, that's it, that's done.
Yeah.
And so I figured, okay, maybe I just need to push the distance so I can really be emotional, right? And so I went to the 50 miles and
got to be so disheartening to see everybody else crying.
Yeah. I'm jealous. I get a little jealous of it. I'm like, let me get some of that release right now. So maybe I need a lot more therapy, but I digress.
I wish you would have did the half marathon with me. And then,
I wasn't even running.
I didn't get
then.
that feeling. And that explains so much about my personality is there was no part of me that said, I ever want to do this again. There was a sense of accomplishment. And I just lied there.
Satisfied.
Just, completely like, wow. Well, there was a sense of accomplishment. It's like one of the biggest accomplishments in my life to finish that.
Yeah.
But
do you remember your time?
It was close to 2 hours.
Okay. That's pretty good still.
Yeah, it was close to 2 hours. But yeah, and I was just, that feeling though is kind of calling me. Like just to feel.
Do you think part of it is because you see me in it all the time?
Like
you see me doing this so much now that like it kind of rubs off. You're like, all right, maybe I will. I see.
No, not yet. It's going to take a lot longer for that to happen.
Well, this is what all of our people that we interview throughout this whole journey of the Ostrich Running Podcast. I call on you to help convince Jarett to get back out there and run another half marathon.
It's not going to happen.
Well,
I mean, I get a good feeling after I finish a 5K now. I think that's the most I'll ever run.
I think it's a pretty good distance, though. A 5K.
No, it is.
It's a great distance. Any kind of running that achieves what you want to achieve is great.
Yeah.
So I want to applaud anybody listening who's completed any distance. Amazing. Applaud. Insert applause.
I don't care. Yeah, if you walk 100 steps, for some people that's tough. You were saying that before.
Yeah. Well, I think the beauty of running too is, and this is the other reason why I kind of wanted to start Ostrich Running is, you have your elite runners out there, right? And yes, they're elite, they're amazing, they're great, and we love watching all of their stuff and their accomplishments. But, that's not majority of us.
Yeah.
But because that's not majority of us, that doesn't take away from the accomplishment, because an elite runner who ran a marathon, and an average runner like myself who runs a marathon, we ran the same distance. In the end, it's the same distance.
Or, a person that's never worked out before in their life and just walks 200 steps.
Yeah.
Is going through the same feeling that someone...
Well, there's a gentleman on social media who I've seen. I can't recall his account, but, he was in an accident and became a full paraplegic. And now he's...
That's not funny. I was thinking about something else.
Yeah, now he's doing marathons.
Yeah.
He's like pushed through and
you see people pushing,
it's just
like
insane.
They're kids that can't even walk or something.
Yeah.
And finishing one.
Yeah.
But now, after listening to some of your stories and just following you more and more, even when I'm just driving home and I see some maybe overweight person, whatever you consider, somebody might consider overweight, just watch, try and run, or they're just walking. You just appreciate them more and more.
Yeah. That's like, even when you're comparing great athletes to great athletes, right? There's, in which I'm sure you've seen in soccer, right? There's the natural talent who's been a natural talent their whole life, right? And they come to a league where there's a ton of natural talents, right?
Like Messi versus Ronaldo.
Yeah, and there's a person who basically never really had to do work, but the other person there who's just as good, but they weren't naturally talented. They had to, you know, hunker down and work for it. Every single thing they worked for it. That person ends up beating the natural talent.
Yeah.
Because work ethic and dedication is so much more than just what your body is able to do. And, you know, clearly genetics and the natural talent of somebody can take you a pretty far way. For me, I'm not a runner. Like, I mean, I have so many
it's so
issues,
crazy
dude.
to hear you say that.
Dude,
that
it's
you're not
crazy.
a runner.
I'm not. Like, I look at these people right now. I'm going through working with a coach for the first time in my running journey because I've got the distances down now, and I feel like I want to push my body for a better time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really great. I'm seeing a lot of increased time, but I remember where I came from, dude. I have stomach issues like no other on any run. So just trying to figure out that, right, where I'm always like, oh my God, I'm burpy, I'm going to throw up. I mean, even so my stomach's so sensitive, you know, depending on what I eat, I could be taking a crap the entire race.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the last 50 miler.
And you still finished it.
Yeah, and I was just pooping. I feel like
It's insane.
Yeah, it's
because I'll be like this is it. Like, we're gonna have to come back and do this another day. So at this point in your career, your running career, do you feel a sense of accomplishment? All the running that you pushed yourself through?
I acknowledge, and I acknowledge my work that I put in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm finished yet, though.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to see how far I can actually go with this. Will I ever win a 100-mile race? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe just the competitor in me wants to just see.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I like distances. I mean, I've come a long way from when I first started, and I only have about 4 years of running under my belt. Is it 4 years? 5 years?
Yeah, because now
4
you
years
can finish a
going
marathon
on.
in like way under 2 hours, probably.
No, not way under 2 hours. It's still like, I think a 3.5 hour marathon would be.
Oh, not a. I'm sorry, half marathon.
Yeah, I can do it in. Yeah, I guess like an hour and 54 minutes still.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Whereas before it would have took you at least 2 hours and 30 minutes.
For sure. Yeah. But that's all, you know, little by little. And I mean, a lot of these guys, they've had decades of running under their belt.
By the way, and they started running track or something when they were in high school.
Yeah. And I was never classically trained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Classic.
Yeah. I'm not classically trained runner. So that's why I wanted to, you know, start this company, create products that address the unclassically trained runner who has problems.
I can't wait to get into this podcast and just hear other people's stories and how they got to the point of being
definitely.
an ultra marathon. Yeah,
we have some good things in store. You know, technology being used to help people run more. Mm-hmm. We have people who are taking up running to help communities out. A lot of other incredible stories, but I can't wait for us to, you know, really present to you this series. We want to really connect the community. I'd like to give back to the community of running that has given to me. Mm-hmm. There's massive support, you know,
it's
from
out
everybody.
here saving people's lives, really.
Dude, it really is. It is a therapy that, you know, I could have never imagined that would have been out there and helped me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of really cool people. I mean, it's just crazy how cool this community is, and how we support one another. There's a lot of hate out there too. I'm not going to say it's like the perfect community of people, because, you know, there's a lot of jerks out there that I see posting on other people's stuff, and to me, it's just wild. But that's just a different breed of human. You know, somebody who has to hate
on a runner.
Yeah. To troll on a runner, right? But yeah, so, you know, we're really excited, you know, to bring this to you. This is introductory episode, because once we get into the next, episodes, it's going to be brief. We might go into some stories, but we have some interviews to bring you. My boy Matthew here might be hanging up on a wall.
More Nick personal stories.
Yeah, we'll have some personal stories. We'll have the questions of Jarett's why. Maybe we can answer those, and maybe you can help answer them.
We got to talk about your last run also.
Yeah, we will have to talk about that last run.
This guy likes, just a little preview, he likes running through Indian reserves at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Man, that was scary. Talk about running scared. We'll save the ghost story for the next episode. And
we might film one.
Yeah, so this would be a fun challenge.
That'd be a good podcast.
Ghost Hunters Runners Edition.
Just one time, go out there with the camera and.
Well, that's what's crazy. I do want to get into that.
Maybe I'll talk to you while you're out there. We'll set it up while you're running and we're having a conversation.
Yeah, we have to figure something out. Might have to be on a walkie-talkie because there's no service out there, which is awesome and scary.
Yeah, because I'll be in the car. So.
You might be just laying in bed like, how's it going out there?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we might have to talk about, what the body does on a run, because
it's true. Maybe we'll get a doctor out here.
Actually, that's a really good idea.
Your mind, like what is going on in your mind?
I want to talk to some running coaches.
We looked at an article that talks about how a lot of addicts or certain personalities, or even I heard a lot of like CEOs and executives tend to be long distance runners. I heard
really?
Yeah.
Huh. So there's a correlation between long distance runners and CEOs, and then there's also a correlation of addiction and long distance runners. Yeah, it's great, and I've seen, a few people who are actually winning races who are actually really good, that or ex-addicts. But yeah, so if there's a topic or somebody that you want us to interview, please, reach out to us. Like I said, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube. You can also go to ostrichrunning.com. We have some merch available, some new products coming out. We're just here for the community, looking for all the support that we can, and we'll see you on this next one.
Yeah, anything helps.
Yeah, anything helps. So thank you very much for joining us for this brief introduction episode on the Ostrich Running Podcast, where we like to talk all things running, crazy, not crazy. Jarett wants to know why. We might answer that question, but we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us.